Journey of She. Hi, I'm Tracy and welcome to Journey of She. Today I am joined by a dear friend slash yogi slash movement for purpose, inspiration, and I'm just so grateful to have Cassandra Bennett here. She's just going to share a little bit about her journey thus far. Welcome to Journey of She, Cass.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. And yes, Tracy and I are dear friends, so it's extra special to be here to connect and then to connect to everybody else as well. Yeah.
Super, Cass. So I wanted to start off, I guess, with your journey and how you've got to being who you are today, and possibly how maybe what you had envisioned all those years ago is slightly different, but hopefully even better than imagined.
Yeah, totally. That's a really good question. So I started life out knowing that I was always interested in creative fields and I wanted to teach. So at one point in time, I envisaged my life actually as a school teacher. And then I was a dance teacher for many years as well. But I was never interested in the creative process as in here is something at the end of the creative process. I was always interested in the creative process. And I think it took me a while as a human evolving to understand why that was, and then to partner up that creative process or the movement process in the body for what it is actually providing for an individual or for communities or for connection purposes. So in my early 20s, I was a dance teacher, and I ended up teaching what I would now understand as really I was teaching dance therapy, but I hadn't made that connection. I was also teaching yoga. And then after becoming a mum, my second son had significant support needs that he really, the world wasn't the right fit for him. He's perfect, but I realized and saw how much I was going to need to grow and adapt to be able to support him in a world not designed for him. And so then from being just a yoga teacher who was really passionate, obviously, about the craft, but not fully going as deep as things like our nervous system, on how trauma can be held in the body, I really dove head first and have never come back out. I come back out with joy to share it with other people, because in doing so, I've become very passionate about how all of this is really easily accessible and something that everybody can do, and I believe should understand about, at least to a certain extent, so we have empowerment in our bodies, so that we can have agency over our bodies and support the people that we love. And how a lot of the time we come into something that we'll feel like, wow, this is really woo-woo, this is really, it's got like that like witchy element or spiritual element to it. People would say, actually, so much of it is science. It's just science. And when we actually look into it and understand why, then there's almost like at points in time in my life, like a primitive rage that comes out of me of like, why did we not have this information about this and our bodies and how we could use this, how we could know this? It's just the very most basic things. And I love being able to, hold space to not just do this with people, but to facilitate sharing the knowledge so that everybody can have just the basic utensils to feel well. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say, before, joining you at the, in the beginning, I was just looking for yoga. I was looking for a space, and then it really started becoming about, like regulating my nervous system. And also for the first time realizing, oh my gosh, like my body thinks it is in danger.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's and it's so acceptable, it's so normal, and it really became about once a week trying to reset my body.
Yes.
And how do you think we can do that? Because it's never too late, right? You can always just step back, and how can we begin to do that? Because it really changed I think I had a quick temper and a short fuse, and it was really actually about my body was just completely overloaded.
Absolutely. And I think, yes, 100%, it's never too late. We have so much neuroplasticity in our minds, and our whole body is going to come from what we are doing in our own neuroplasticity of our mind and then our nervous system and regulating. And remembering as well that our goal in learning regulation isn't so that we are constantly in a state of calm, but it's so that we have a really, if you think about like an elastic band that has the flexibility to stretch and then come back in. And so also that we have the connection and the interoception to understand what's going on with us. And sometimes that can be also the understanding that we can feel it in a physical sense, but when we start to understand what's happening, what are the chemical releases that are going on in our body, what things in our environment might be making that cycle worse for us, and how we can start to take changes. There are so many things we can do actively to change it. One of the simplest ways, though, and a really beautiful one, is to surround yourself with people who see you specifically, and who love you and or just admire and respect you, and send that energy of goodness back to you, because that can be such a big thing. And like you say, people have normalized the feeling of being constantly on edge. And in some circles and cases, and like in hustle culture, for example, it's almost praised. And I know that going into different environments where you're teaching yoga, and you can be a yoga teacher who has a lot of people around them really focused on asanas, you can come into places where people are really like, keep pushing the body. Like, let's keep pushing the body. Let's get fit. Let's like, no pain, no gain. That's bullshit. Like, that's so completely detrimental to all of your systems in your body, your nervous system, your endocrine system, just everything. And there are so many things that we can do just by not by basically, but the basic ability to make a few changes in our mindset, and then have people around us who are like, yeah, that's what we're doing here. That's where we're going to hold this space for. And that in itself can be a really powerful change. But in terms of tools, even starting to become more aware of your breath is a really good gateway in, because your breath is really connecting you to obviously your mind and your body, your pranayama connection. And even just by coming into deeper diaphragmatic breaths, we'll be naturally supporting our lymphatic system, naturally pumping lymph around our bodies. Our lymph and our fascia have a great connection as well. And then we can really dive deep into looking at our neurotransmitters and our hormones, and just our inner pharmacy of what happens when we start to be kind to ourselves and the people around us, rather than saying yes, that this world and this culture is acceptable, and that pretending that it's not going to cause burnout, and then blaming ourselves when we do burn out, you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, you speak of this fascia, and, you know, I'd heard the word and I had no idea. And suddenly I feel like, I don't know, the pages I'm following are sort of speaking to me. You're speaking about it. Is this something that we were all supposed to know about, and we missed it in science? And I had no idea that I had no idea.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why I get very passionate about things like this, because it's not that, it is complex in some ways, but it's not that complex, and we can have this knowledge and understanding. So everybody should know about this. Our fascia is our connective tissue. And if you imagine kind of like like a woolly jumper where the holes you can see through, or like a bra bag that you put through the wash, there's the mesh. And our fascia is like a really tight weave that encases all of our muscles, all of our organs. And the easiest way to visualize our fascia chains would even to be, if you did a quick Google search on fascia chains, you'd be able to see the really beautiful imagery of it. But there are main fascia chains that run through the body. So for example, one of our fascia chains runs from at the back of the head all the way down to the heels. And the reason I bring this one up is because this is also in line with, in our traditional Chinese medicine, our bladder meridian line. Your bladder meridian line is for your nervous system. So something that I think is really beautiful that we dive into in somatic work and in yoga work is to align our Western and our Eastern medicine, and remember that it's about becoming intuitive to your body, and pairing both of those things for the greatest agency in what you do and understanding. But our fascia will over time get naturally stiffer as we age. Or when I say stiffer, you might like to imagine like chewing gum that's getting harder, like it's been taken out of the mouth and now it's getting harder. Natural age will do that. But things like exercise and the way that we live our lives will keep it well hydrated and keep it really flexible. And also our chemicals in our body are going to affect our fascia. So if we are experiencing high levels of cortisol and adrenaline in our body, then our fascia, if we're stressed, our fascia is also going to get stiffer. And if you can imagine our muscles all cased in like really tight, hard bubble gum that can't move versus really supple and fluid, you could imagine how the body would feel in those times. So when people talk about releasing trauma from the body, what we're looking at is where has the fascia in your body become hardened? So if you're at home and listening to this, you could even stand up and reenact or just bring your body into a position where you know would be a habitual posture of a stress response. So I'm going to give some common examples. You might round the shoulders like you're protecting your heart. You might clench your jaw. You might clench your buttocks. Those are some fairly common ones, or locking the knees. Those parts in your body, if you're repeatedly doing this over time, even on a micro level, say at work or in environments where you're feeling like you need to repress any emotions, over time your fascia and your muscles around those areas are going to get harder. And so when we talk about releasing trauma from the body, yes, there is the neurological link of the event and what you're releasing, but it is also just looking at the science of bringing more suppleness and hydration and flexibility back into those muscles so that you can start to form new habitual postures. And if you even standing at home now practice standing upright, chest is open, palms are facing forward, bring a smile onto your face. Think about looking at your best friend across from you and having a big, beautiful smile and sharing a moment versus being in an environment of stress, rounding into the shoulders. Feel how those different postures naturally change your body, naturally change what's going on in your nervous system, in your brain. Your body can signal afferently and efferently. So we can send signals to our brain and our brain can send signals to us. So yeah, there's so much science to it that isn't that hard. It's not that difficult to wrap our minds around it. And I really do feel like we should be taught this at school. We should let our children know there's nothing to be afraid of. We've gotten a really stiff shoulder and neck because, at school for the last 5 days, you've been, gripping or gritting into something. And then what do we do about it? Then we change. Yeah.
I mean, I was even, I think when I first started diving into, shadow work and releasing trauma, I struggled because I thought, I don't think that I have significant trauma when I compare myself to some people who have really just had a really, really hard life. And it took me time to sit and say, oh, yeah, I felt, oh my gosh, like, Tracy, how can you be saying that you got to deal with this trauma? You've had a blessed life. And it was this moment of also stepping back and saying, but it's my body's reaction to it.
Absolutely.
It's not this comparison of what level of trauma I haven't experienced and therefore my body isn't holding anything.
Yes.
To my body, it was experiencing stress, and how am I sort of, releasing or even just acknowledging that it's there in the first place.
Absolutely. Acknowledging it is so important. And accumulative stress and our allocaustic load can build up. And, obviously, if you look at a really major big life event where there was really significant trauma, you can insert into that whatever you want it to be versus your everyday experience of just an allocaustic load building up over time. You're the only person who gets to say what that's done to your body. And in many cases, the small accumulative build, it is sneakier because we don't take the time necessarily as a culture to go, hey, I was really stressed today. I just need a moment now to decompress. We're probably actually going to be making everybody's dinner and getting everybody ready for bath and then going to bed with the tension still held in the body and waking up in the morning with it having essentially solidified and being there as the little layer up of, if you think like packing down a layer of dirt each day, if you're doing that over and over again, that can have a really strong build-up. And it's often those times where we don't, as a culture now, get to share that with another person. And that can be a really significant part of trauma as well, which is you can consider trauma to be the event, but perhaps more accurately, trauma is what happens to your body after the event. So you can have people who, for example, two people in a car crash, one person returns to school or work and they're fine. The other person might not for some reason have the same structural support around them environmentally, or they might be trying to hold it all together for the rest of their family. They might have been having a bad day on the day of their crash. And 6 years later down the track, that person might have a really significant accumulation of trauma in their body versus the other person who had the same experience, but it's what happens post-event, which is again why we come back into why it's really important to surround yourself in environments where people see you, not the performative you, see when you've had a hard day and it be okay to have space for that and to support each other, to be each other's biggest cheerleaders. And I think for women that really lacks in today's culture, and but it doesn't have to, we can change that. Yeah
absolutely. I think I think it's this face, and I guess we all just actually get tired of putting it on. But then if you don't have people that you can show your true self in the worst, then you retreat. I think even this morning at drop off, I wish I was invisible. I just didn't want to be seen, because I didn't want to smile and chat, and it was just not that day for me. And it was so nice because now, you're in front of me and I can just be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not okay, or whatever the case is. And I already feel lighter. Like, this is therapy. This, here we are, not around the bonfire, but around the microphone. It's good. It's really good.
Absolutely. Circles of Women is such a precious, beautiful thing. And I think as well on that, like, if you think about all of the time that we need to put on a mask and pretend, then the trauma that we're essentially doing to ourselves, and I'll just touch only very briefly on it, but that's essentially fawning, which is a type of stress response in the body. And the times when you can take that off are going to be holding space for other people to do it. It might not always work in regular life, but it's so important to find the spaces where you can do that, where you can put down like the heavy bag essentially and just really be in the space, let out a big breath and go, and we hold a lot in our lungs as well. So with the way that we're breathing is changing that. There are so many things that we can just start to subtly change within ourselves, and yoga is such a great place for that, which is why I do love dance as well, and all movement. But yoga, I feel like it is so attainable. We can all bring ourselves into basic yoga postures. They don't need to be very complex. Even at home, without an instructor or an instructional book in front of you, you could come into a few yoga poses, breathe, listen to your body, and in doing so, give your body what it needs to release any build-up of the fawn response in your body. You're listening to your body, you're listening to your breath, you're coming home to yourself. And if you can do that and be seen by another person, then that's even more powerful as well. So in circle is even better, but we can just start by, just being there for ourselves.
Beautiful, Cass. Before I let you go, the other word sort of that came up in conversation earlier, or as you were talking, was somatic. And again, new word to the Tracy Dictionary over the last, 2 years or whatever the case is. And if you could share just a little bit about somatic practice, somatic dance, whatever the case is, just to sort of, I think create
absolutely.
awareness about these things that are out there and accessible at the moment.
Yes, for sure. So there's a lot of different types of somatic, and we can even dive deeper into this another time if you like to. But somatic, we have essentially, I'm going to give us a real, just bone structure of it. We're honoring the body's stress response and our nervous system, and noticing if we could have gone into one of the 4 stress responses of fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And then usually, and again, this is really interesting because it comes more into that conversation of a really large traumatic event where we might have had time for our body to recover, or we might not have, versus the small accumulative everyday stresses where we've probably pushed through, right? Because we have jobs and families and children, and Hopefully we haven't, but we probably have at some small level. And so when you look at when your body goes into a fight response, just again, looking at the science of things, your hormones and chemicals in your body, we now have an excess amount of cortisol and adrenaline because your body has given you responses that it's time to fight, as in physically fight. And you probably didn't punch somebody in the face that day. So then you've still got all of those, that response in your body that we can find a way to get out, and we can do that through movements. So movements, for example, like a force, like an exertion. The same would be for flight. If your body was telling you to run away and you didn't, your body still has within it, within the muscle, within the fascia, and your hormones, your inner pharmacy, is still ready to run away if it needs to. It hasn't let go of that because your nervous system is wired to protect you, and it's doing a good job at that. But we also can remind it that we're not in danger. And the way we could do that is by fast kind of flapping motions. Just a quick note on that. That's autistic stimming, and so what a beautiful thing. That's a whole nother kettle of fish we could dive into. But flap your hands, shake your legs, run. Dance is a beautiful example because we naturally are giving ourselves all of these opportunities to do it naturally. And I'm also always intrigued if someone tells me they've suddenly become an avid runner and that they we'll be drawn to the things, the exercises that we need for our bodies so often. So you can be practicing somatic without that neural pathway connection, but if you pair it with the neural connection, it's going to be really powerful for you. And then the last one's a fawn, which we spoke about earlier and is a really big topic to dive into, and also freeze. When your body goes into freeze, and we can be in functional freeze for a long time, you could spend your whole life in functional freeze. It's when your body is reserving energy and you can't drop to the ground and have a big sleep and shut down. You have to keep going. So your body really wants to rest. And so again, we can provide our time for our body to rest. And so it's about identifying and knowing, and then obviously it's a lot more complex than that. We'd have blends of different things, but the first thing is just to start listening in and getting really curious about what it is that your body needs, and also knowing that you can provide for your body what it needs, and start to have these conversations perhaps a little more openly with your loved ones around you, so that we all know that we're all humans experiencing this together. And you should never assume that somebody has had a stress-free day when they smile and look at you. We don't want to be holding space for just always complaining and talking about stress, but we also want to be real. We want to hold space for each other to have a day. And from that, we get that biofeedback into the body, where our body can have a moment to have that feeling and then come back into homeostasis, into positivity. And then we come back into our an anatomy neurotransmitter, and we're coming back into those higher states where we are genuinely happy again, rather than just putting on a little mask and saying, yeah, it's been a great day. We must hold space for each other in that way.
Absolutely. I think if the moment that you can realize, all right, I'm not in a good space, or I'm feeling this, that's first acknowledge. Great. Sit in it. Cry, watch a rom-com, have a bath, whatever it is. I mean, step outside, take a walk, put your headphones in so you don't have to, you can isolate, right? If someone sees you, you can just put your head down. I'm busy right now.
Yeah. And
just step away to be able to sort of come back and click into life again.
Yeah.
Cass, not only do I want to thank you for making the time and space for me today, I just want to thank you for creating those connections and circles and spaces that I have survived because of them. Truly.
You're so welcome.
Yeah,
I love you so much.
You're doing great work, and I just hope that at the end of this podcast, if you can be connecting or just resonating with anyone on the other side. It really is about just sharing and connecting and communicating and uplifting other women. Yeah. Really, that's all we're going for.
Yeah. Thank you, Tracy. It's always so lovely to chat with you, and now this time we got to record it.
First of many.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Cass. Thank you for listening. That's it for Journey of She.